All right, so just to reiterate again, really the key is trust. And trust is the foundation for everything. And if you don't have trust, you don't have anything else. And in this whole process, Lencioni makes the distinction about vulnerability-based trust. So the point there is a lot of times I can trust somebody. Let's say, David and I have worked together for years. I know what he's going to do because, I kind of understand his personality. And there's a certain level of trust there, right? But that's what's known as predictive trust. But what I really want to have is more vulnerability-based trust, where I really feel confident that if he feels that if he's in over his head, he's going to tell me. Or if he needs something from me, he's going to share that with me. Or if I'm doing something that really isn't working for the team or for the group or whatever, he's going to also share that feedback with me. And so it's really that kind of foundation where we're authentic, we're open and honest. And some of you might be familiar with Brené Brown's work. Has anyone seen Brené Brown? Some nodding. Okay. So if you're not familiar with her, she's written a lot of books and gave a wonderful TED Talk on the power of vulnerability and so forth in the workplace. And she's a professor at the University of Houston, I believe. But I think it struck such a chord because we know that in many companies there is sort of this fake niceness, right? and even at Aetna, I can say this because they talk about it, they talk about Aetna nice because people are very genuine and caring, but sometimes that means that they don't give one another the feedback that they really need to be giving, okay? So that's really important. And it's not just, again, touchy-feely stuff. It's really important to understand that this has a financial impact. So I want to talk about the high cost of trust now. Cornell University actually has a big hotel and hospitality college, so I believe that's why it took place here. But they did some research to explore the link between trust and profit, okay? So they surveyed 6,500 employees at 76 Holiday Inns in the US and Canada, and they were asking them about trust in management. They were asking them about customer service and commitment. And the questions roughly were, do you believe your manager is going to do what they say they're going to do? Like to Russ's point, do they walk the talk? Do they live their values? That kind of thing. And the other questions had to do with, do you feel proud to work for this hotel? And do you think that your team members would go the extra mile? So those were some of the questions. And so it was a 5-point scale. And what they found was a 1/8 of an increase in the trust level, a 2.5% increase translated into a profit increase per year per hotel of what would you guess? I will give you the right answer. 1.5 million per hotel?
Oh, not 10%.
Okay. Yeah, I would have maybe guessed, $50,000, $100,000, something like that. But it's actually $250,000 per hotel, which is really amazing. Just an 1/8 of an increase, right? How much trust makes a difference. So why do you think that is? Just throw out some answers. Why would trust benefit you? Why would it result in a higher profit?
You want to do your best.
You want to do your best. Okay, what else?
I can ask for help.
I can ask for help. I don't have to be perfect all the time.
Try new things.
Try new things. You're more innovative, you're more creative, all of those things, right? What else?
When the employees are happy, that goes on to their loyal customers.
Exactly. Yes, you know the difference. When you walk into a hotel and they're not getting along and they're fighting, you can just feel it, right? They're snarky at the front desk, they're snarky in the restaurant, etc. Yeah, and so the question to you is, do you think this is limited to the hotel industry? It probably applies in all industries, right? In the people business, we know that, but not everybody sees that sometimes. So it's really important to really understand how powerful that is. So really, what if we could measure this? What if we really could see if people trust one another, if they're engaging in healthy conflict, if they are committing to decisions, not just, nodding their head like that one guy, I really am not bought in, but I'm just gonna, under the radar nod, I love the little thought bubbles. Hold each other accountable and really, focus on achieving some collective results, because we know what those results are. So that's what this process is. So for those of you who are familiar with DISC, how many are familiar with DISC? A lot. Okay, excellent. So basically, Wiley was the publisher of the 5 Dysfunctions of a Team and many of Patrick's other books. He's written a number. Death by Meeting is another great one. If you haven't read, you just need to read that one. But Wiley bought Inkscape Publishing, which was the original disc. And so since 2012, they've been trying to figure out a way to collaborate. And the power of bringing disc into this is really very important because now you can understand each team member's behavior, right? And rather than judge their behavior, you start to see, oh, I see, you're acting that way because that's just the way you see the world and what motivates you and how you work versus you're just trying to make my life difficult, aren't you? Feels that way sometimes, right? But that's not the case. So if you're familiar with DISC, just at a high level, and I'll say a little bit more about it later, and you'll see it in the report as I start to walk through it, is different people have different priorities based on your primary style. So if somebody really is focused on collaboration and that's one of their priorities, they often will seek harmony. Or likewise, if they're really valuing relationships, they really want acceptance. And if they are more focused on results, they seek action, your high Ds many times. And then someone who seeks the facts often has a priority on accuracy and might be a high C, etc. Okay, so I'll say more about that for those of you who aren't familiar. Just trust me on the coding for the moment. But really important to understand this because then you can get into valuing differences more. Okay, so there's some key assumptions that I want to just start out with, and that is basically that building trust is the foundation. And I've said that a number of times, but it's so critical. And also, understanding team members' DISC styles can help with trust because one of the things that I've learned over the years, I've had the good fortune of having a wonderful mentor who worked with John Geyer at the very beginning of the development of the original DISC. And I also have a coach in Australia that I've been working with who has a lot of assessments around trust that are really very powerful. That different DISC styles have different priorities. For example, a high D really likes straightforwardness, right? And so for those of you who aren't familiar, high D stands for dominance. And basically these are your action-oriented, results-oriented, driven people, get it done yesterday. You can tell folks like that, hey, this is how it is, and they're not offended. But if you tell a high I like me, my feelings might be a little hurt. Influence is what the high I stands for, and that's very much your classic people person, often a coach or somebody who really likes to connect and to network and often very friendly and more people-oriented. I'm not doing justice to it. There's much more I could say, but they value openness. And I know for myself, if someone's not open with me, even though I know this, I sort of don't trust them, right? It's interesting. And a high S, they're much more around acceptance. So if they're judged, if they feel judged in any way, they feel very put off. And it's quite interesting that the dynamics between the diagonals, because a high D just wants straightforwardness, whereas somebody with a high S might be more diplomatic and not be so straightforward, and the high D will write them off right away. So a lot of times when I'm doing executive coaching and I'm working with a high S or a high C individual, and I have somebody at Walmart that I'm working with right now around this, he gets written off because he doesn't sometimes just state what he feels right away. He has to think about it. So we're working on, how can you meet them halfway and vice versa. So it's fascinating. And then the high C really wants to know that you're going to be reliable, that it's going to be done on time, etc. Right? So it's fascinating. And if you understand that, then you see that it's a lot more layered and rich, and you can really understand how to work with people in a different way. Okay? So the outcomes of this process are that really you establish this strong basis for commitment, and you really get people pulling together. And at the end of the process, they create a contract for how they're going to move forward. There's an action plan at each stage of the process so that they really know what do we specifically need to work on, okay? So how it works is there's one assessment, and it's an individual report that everyone takes, and then there's a team report that's generated, and the process walks the team through how are you doing on each of these elements? And more importantly, what can you do about it? And it's very much around a dialogue. They agree what they need to do differently, and then there's some skills-based trainings in the whole process too. Because again, I'll say it again, you know, when people are really open and honest and transparent with one another and they trust one another, then magic can happen. You can really get things done. But the converse is, you know, miserable, and we've all been there. And so really the other piece that I think is critical to understand about interpersonal differences is that by nature of being a human being, we're sort of judging machines. You know, we just judge people. We don't realize it perhaps, but we make assessments, you know, in a nanosecond. And we all have the tendency to think that we're right. And well, we are in our own mind, right, in our own perspective, but really we want to get to where we're understanding other people, but not just from the framework of, you know, I understand where he's coming from, but why is he doing that? And really start to move up to respecting that and to valuing that and really appreciating that, and also really harnessing the power of that.